Hello, guys. Wanted to make a video talking about a very specific thing, which will have and has been having a very big effect on AoE2 and specifically unit control and our pro scene. All right. If you're looking for a cast, I've got plenty of videos upcoming and thousands of videos before it, so that's not what this is. Here, we're getting a little bit nerdier and diving into a deeper issue. All right, so this all kind of came to the forefront in the El Renato Red Bull final, where we had Hera in the blue and Viper in the red. And Hera used a patrol stacking technique. Technically, kind of an old scenario trick, which players would use in custom scenarios to stack on various things. But to explain basically how this would work, at least in the past, right, is my understanding is when you're switching formations in AoE2, I think the way the game was coded is units kind of forget each other's hitbox so they can properly move in and out of formations. If you spam certain ones and toggle them back and forth and hard patrol onto a very tight area, your units will actually overlap and stack on each other. It wasn't super easy to do it this time unless you really had practiced it. Hera did practice it, and essentially it makes it so the majority of Hera's army can all hit at the same time because they were on the same tile, and it just completely mowed down everything. And in melee v melee engagements, it means that like you're doing tons of DPS or damage per second, and you have like a death tile, right? You have a death ball, a death tile, and a counter unit, or like Halb in this case. Sure, they may get some hits, but they're not, getting the value that they might want. Now, that was where it came to the forefront in recent years. And immediately after this, there was a ban on this behavior. This is not allowed in any AoE2 tournament, any AoE2 tournament sponsored by World's Edge, which is basically all the big events. And my understanding is this was also widely agreed upon that it needed to be banned. So all pro players thought, we can't have the game be this. Let's eliminate it. Now, before I read the rule, I just want to briefly explain, right? Because there might be some thinking there of well, why ban that? That's how the game can be played. Why not allow it? Without wasting too much time on it, essentially, if it was allowed to stack all of your units onto a small spot like that, anytime armies would be coming together, you would always be incentivized to small patrol stack and not move forward. And the enemy would always be at a disadvantaged fight, which means that the enemy would small patrol stack and not advance forward. And basically, what could quickly happen is that's how everyone just camps around the map in this tiny little spot. There's other reasons too. The game was not balanced around units being able to stack like that. But yeah, I think it's good to not have in the game because it can get really bad and can have big negative effects. All right, so here's the rule. This is in the World's Edge official handbook. Players are not allowed to continuously stack large armies of melee units, excluding certain units, which is interesting, on a small area using patrol stacking to force an advantageous fight. Each instance will be reviewed by the admin team on a case-by-case basis and will result in an admin loss for the player that uses this unit behavior on this map. So that means you would lose a game if you were to do this behavior. Doesn't matter if you were winning. It doesn't matter what else happens. That is a loss determined on a case-by-case basis. But yes, that is a loss. So the thing is in a recent patch, they made it easier for units to stack on top of one another. This is all units. It obviously has a big effect on melee units, as we're going to see. But the game made it way easier, which I think in their mind was to, it maybe improve pathing in some way for melee units. But people are starting to more and more use a stand ground patrol forward to take an engagement. Here's an example. Here we just have Karambits. That's a stand ground patrol. And you see how the units glide through each other and they're all engaging, and then how the knights bump around and find new targets. So this engagement right here, per the rule, would be allowed because this is not a continuous stack on one tile per my understanding. And you might be like, okay, well, that's decent. Maybe everyone can do that, right? But it's so easy to do right now that it completely changes how any of these engagements go. Here we've got some Magyar Hussar, and there's going to be crossbowmen that are leaving the picture, right? And usually when you're chasing units, your units hit, and they have to refine their target, right? So these crossbows are going to run away. Now, this isn't a human controlling the crossbows, but now if you stand ground patrol, look at how your units flawlessly move. They ignore each other's hitboxes constantly. And they just mow down the army, right? And again, per my understanding of that rule, which influences all of our tournaments, this behavior is allowed, right? And if a behavior is allowed and you're playing for big money and you're playing for prestige and you're playing for whatnot, you got to take advantage of everything you can. And this is one of many things that are possible. Many of this is not even being used yet. So kind of my angle here, and the reason I'm starting this discussion and the reason that I'm making this video is because I'm a tournament host, and giving admin losses is a horrible thing. Sometimes in these engagements, it can get pretty blurry on, okay, what is the patrol stack onto a small area, and what is the patrol stack just forward into an enemy army? This is something that players have come to me about, and they've said, like, hey, this engagement is BS. That shouldn't be allowed. That's patrol stacking. And like, I just feel like it's going to be kind of complicated for players to know what can we do and what can't we do. And then also, you know, admins and fans and everybody else as well. So here's another one. This was in Titans League. And so we had Eagle v. Eagle engagement. So it's kind of nice because you have the same amount of units engage. You have the same type of units engaging instead of different behaviors, right? Now, Husiel's in the red. He does have lesser numbers. He does also have one less upgrade. Okay, so Jordan's maybe going to win this fight anyways. But just watch the units and watch the behavior of the units. There's a clear difference in how the units work. And if you've been watching the game for a while, you know, like, one is very new behavior, one is very old behavior. So Jordan patrols in on a patrol stack. His units all glide onto the same tiles. They're all instantly engaging with no delay. Husiel's units, they kind of stutter around and look for targets, right? This was one where people came to me and said, the official handbook bans this. And I had to be like, no, that is a patrol forward into an engagement. I understand it's messy. The official handbook, per that rule, it actually allows this right now. Now, here was one from the other day where a player was using his units just basically to patrol and just to block units on an epic trap. So Tato is trying to funnel these units into the Scorpions. He's just trying to body block. He doesn't care how his units actually interact with the Manaspa there. So he does that to block, and then the Scorpions mow this down. It's this amazing trap. Per my understanding of the rule, that could be an admin loss right there, because that was onto one spot, and that was like a patrol stack. Tato didn't mean to even use those units to chew up and get kills like the other patrol stack. But because stand ground is becoming so common, and because it's so easy to stack your units on top of each other, and it's starting to become so commonplace, it's really easy to blur the waters of what is allowed and what isn't with this rule being in place, but then where there being so many practical benefits to patrol stacking in other ways. And so I'm going to show you some things that I think are like technically legal and are way easier to do right now after some of these changes that should be technically allowed, right? That I think people could possibly have some issue with. Here we've got some scouts. You can just stack a lot of units onto single tiles and patrol in and smash buildings down very, very quickly. Now, again, it is very specific thing you got to do. And yes, you know, maybe this leads to more offensive play or whatnot, but this isn't how we have been playing the game. So part of my question is going to be, should this be our new normal? What's going to be our new normal? And yeah, that is like literally just one patrol, and you've got a majority of these scouts attacking the market. He's not breaking through the market there in that example. That is like a noob approach at it. That doesn't seem that extreme. But what about spearmen? Feudal Age spearmen against fortified wall. If you actually knew what you were doing, if you're actually experienced at it, how long would it take to take down a fortified wall with a group of spearmen? Is someone actually going to use spearmen with the Turks to take down a wall, an arena or something? No. But just keep an eye on it. You've got one group stacked up there. You're making progress. Okay, we got more of them stacked up there. Do you see the HP going down on that wall right now? That's not the whole army yet. Wait a second. Let's get more units phased into this one little tile. Yep, we got more units onto that tile. Look at the wall, dude. Look at the wall, man. And I think per the rule, this would be allowed. right? I don't think players would like it. And I think if it would become really, really commonplace, things could get really, really messy from an enforcement standpoint. There's a bunch of really weird crap you can do that I don't really think is that big of a deal. Like, I mean, yeah, Phosphorus showing here, you can stack 5 Rams and Conks onto like 3 or 4 tiles. Yeah, we got the Rams in there, and he's just melting a castle instantly. Like, I don't know how realistic some of this stuff is, but let me just show you a couple really recent examples of this stand ground patrol affecting fights in competitive matches, just to show you how it's really starting to rise. All right, so it's a little blurry, but this should give you the idea. So here's kind of the same game, same moment. We have the same group of knights. I could tell you pretty clearly. First one, somewhat normal knight behavior. The knights don't phase through each other. The knights actually know the others exist. They bump, they win the fight. That's normal. Second engagement, you notice there's a point there where we have 4 knights all engaging around that unit at the exact same time. That's a stand ground patrol, right? So there's a difference in how these units engage purely based on the formation, and they again, ignore each other. Now, something that I think I said, maybe I didn't, but I'm just going to reiterate. In the past, some of this stuff was doable. Like what Hera did was doable, but it was a lot more like spamming, and you were like a little bit harder to like force it, right? Now it's like super easy to replicate, and it's allowed. Now, he was going to win this fight anyways, but you kill faster that way, and your units behave completely differently, which makes like balancing really complicated. If you're able to ignore your own unit's hitboxes, and maybe even, as my understanding is, sometimes you can ignore the opponent's unit's hitboxes and glide through them, it changes things. Here, what normally happens, now granted, Hera's going to win this fight anyways. Hera's won this game already. It doesn't really matter. But what normally happens is your knights are going to engage in this little choke. Your front line's going to hit. The other units have to reposition. They're going to maybe move around, right? And like bump, because there's like too many units to fit through here. But if you stand ground patrol forward, you go through and they glide into the middle of the enemy army, right? Like you see that glide through, that is a stand ground patrol. It is extremely easy to do. And because you are going forward in a more like accurate, active engagement, per the tournament ruling, it is allowed. And so, and we'll watch this fight again. I'm not coming at you with any real answers here. But what I'm saying is players seem to be doing this more and more. There's lots of different ways this can be used that under the rules right now is allowed. And then the other part of it, of course, is some of this stuff can be, done by average players right now. And it doesn't matter what's allowed in tournaments or not. It could still be done in the game. So it's like, is this kind of what we want, right? It's just a concern of mine. It's something that is happening. I could reference a dozen other examples from this week because it's happening more and more. And not just with melee units. It just so happens that like this, here we go again, patrols in, whoosh, just mows down the army, just mows right through it. This has balance implications. And yeah, I mean, as a tournament host, I would feel, and as a player as well, I feel like something's going to need to be discussed or figured out here. At least there needs to be some general consensus on this whole issue at some point. Here's a quick example of range units doing it. This is stand ground patrol, and so the units just glide through each other and insta-fire as they go. So the movement never really stops, and the fire continues. That only happens if you have it on a stand ground patrol. And as you could see, units easily glide through each other. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where things will go. A little stressed about it. I've used this in games before to some effect. And, 6 months ago, I'd have a player say, is that not banned? Like, why did you just use that when that's banned in your tournament? But I'd be like, no, it's not banned. And I'd have to explain the nuance of it. It's kind of tricky. Like in the past, you really had to make it work and you really had to spam certain aspects of formations to get some of these stacks to work. But units are so easy breezy flowing through each other now after the recent patch. It kind of undid some of the work that the devs had previously done to prevent people from stacking 60 units on a single tile, for example. So yeah, that's basically it. I could go through and find a bunch of other examples, but this really does affect kind of every type of engagement. There is, of course, the potential downside. If you stack a bunch of units on a tile, you could get destroyed. This could make Scorpions or Siege faster. And there is the occasional example of units being stacked on one tile and they get hit with a mangonel or something. But more often than not, I feel like what this can do is this can completely change the behavior of units and thus the balance of certain units, which are balanced around the way they path and the way they move. It's a very tricky scenario. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. If you would like to see more examples of this, like me to have more in-depth conversation on it, maybe I can do so at some point. I can understand players' complaints who have had certain engagements happen and they feel as though it's not how AoE2 should and has been being played. And I know tournament hosts like myself and admins are a little bit concerned on how there's a rule that bans just stacking in one area, but all the other stuff is allowed. So yeah, that kind of affects everything, but wouldn't be AoE2 without a good old pathing problem. So yeah, like the video, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. For those that wanted any casting content, I've got a lot of that stuff coming. In fact, I spent 10 hours the other day recording a bunch of videos, so keep an eye out for that. And also, please help me get to 400k subs, because that'd be cool. That's it, guys. Thank you.